Hey there, Outposters, and guess who I have back, and guess what we're going to talk about again? Star Trek Picard. What's wrong with us, Matt? We swore we'd never do this.
I know. And we're reluctantly liking it as well by the sound of things. So yeah, here we are.
Yeah, I guess that's the question, isn't it? It's like what changed? It's like, well, it appears to be good, and
So
I'm a
far.
little shocked by that.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I guess I don't know. Let's talk about episode one. We'll talk about episode one, and then we'll talk a little bit about what has changed behind the scenes, or at least what I believe has changed based on the things I'm able to glean. So a little backstory for me. I was, yeah, I saw the trailers, and I saw they were dragging in Michael Dorn and LeVar Burton and Gates McFadden and everybody into this, right? It was going to be a next gen reunion. And my first impulse was, oh Jesus, they're going to ruin everybody now.
Mhm.
You know, because why wouldn't I? I mean, season one was horrific, and somehow season two ended up being worse. I mean, it was held together slightly better. At least I like with season one, I was having trouble following the story or giving two shits about what was going on because I just was nodding off half the time, and it was so convoluted. And then Picard ends up a robot, I guess. Um, Now there is some, you know, can that be done? Can Picard be a robot and not be a whole different character, a whole different person? I think back to this. I think it's called the Schizoid Man, where some scientist is dying on a planet, and he apparently taught Noonien Soong a lot of stuff, even though Soong looked like about 3,000 years older than he was. But the makeup of those days, they did the best they could.
Yep.
And he put himself into Data before he died.
I don't remember this one.
Yeah, it's like a second season episode. Might be even a first. I'm not sure. And he he ended up not being able. He got, like it was kind of one of those stories where you go, okay, I've got absolute power, and absolute power corrupts, right? So he was. Plus, there was the whole nature of how, what are Data's rights? You subsumed Data for yourself,
Yeah.
and everything. And then the guy ends up doing the right thing. But once he transfers again into the computer, his knowledge is in the computer, but he's not.
Yes.
Whatever that it, yeah, his soul, whatever you want to call it.
Ira?
It is me. I am here. I am alive.
He's in there. Ira put himself in the computer.
The intellect of Ira Graves has been deposited into our computer. There is knowledge, but no consciousness. The human equation has been lost.
So I guess maybe there is a precedent for Picard being in an android body. I don't know. I get why people hate it. I don't like it. It's not my. I would have rather they said, "Oh, we found this cure for your thing, and now you're cured." That would have been at least that question wouldn't linger out there. So I mean, and I'm telling all this as an example of just kind of the nonsense choices that they made of people who do not understand how to write. I was listening to a little bit of Drinker and Robert Burnett or whatever his name
Yeah.
is, And the guy was saying, look, these people have never, the people that wrote these stories back in the day, in the 60s, these were people who went to war. Some of them went to war in World War I, Some of these people have written, have seen things. And the people who are writing now have never gotten out of Twitter. They never get out of their phone. They don't live anything in life. And that's why they write this way. I think that's a pretty good explanation of why these things are... Yeah, why I think it's nonsense. I think Gen X may be the last generation that's able to write anything. Because we remember a time before phones.
Yeah, and the great outdoors.
Yeah. But, okay. So now they've got a new... I guess Kurtzman and the showrunner, Akiva Goldsman, is running Strange New Worlds. And Kurtzman is doing something else, and he just put my name on it and do whatever the hell you want. And he's been shoved to the side. Whether voluntarily or through pressure or whatever, I don't know. So he's gone, and now we've got this Terry Metallis. Now, Metallis I looked into, and he doesn't have the most, I mean, it's not a resume that's going to take your breath away, But he was on Voyager, like when he was real young, doing work on Voyager. I don't think he wrote any scripts, but he maybe was in the writer's room, throwing out ideas towards a script that was being produced, that kind of thing. He did write some scripts for Enterprise. And they didn't seem to be bad. I probably should have this up. Let me get it up here real quick.
So he's been in and around the workforce that back in the days when people did understand Star Trek. So that's a good start.
Yeah, because he's 47 now. So we're not talking. He's not. Yeah, he's younger than you and me.
No, well, I'm 47 actually. So.
Okay. When were you born? No, you're older. I guarantee you're older. Because unless you were born around Christmas, he was born December 11th. I'm guessing your birthday is earlier than that. So yes, you're older. Tough shit, buddy. Welcome to it. Here's your Geritol. So he did Star Trek Enterprise as a writer in season 3. Then he did Terra Nova as a writer in season 1, which that show never really went anywhere. It was a show where people left Earth to go to a new planet because Earth was dying, and the new planet that they were establishing a colony on had dinosaurs. That was the thing.
That's right.
And then there was he was a writer and producer for seasons 3 and 4 of Nikita. I never saw Nikita, but I heard it was reasonably okay. He was the creator, showrunner, writer, director, executive producer for all, or at least seasons 1 through 4 of 12 Monkeys. Now, I've seen the movie. I've never seen the show.
It weren't bad, to be fair.
Is it okay? Okay. So he was the guy behind that.
Yeah, it went up its own arse a little bit towards the end, but it was entertaining. It was quite good. It's lots of interweaving storylines. So yeah, okay, he's got quite a decent background then.
And then he did some MacGyver, the new MacGyver show, a little bit. He was a showrunner, executive producer for season 4. I didn't even know that was on anymore. I guess it's a reboot, but I didn't know it existed. And now he's doing Star Trek Picard. So the guy has some experience under his belt. Not a huge, there's nothing on those credits up until Picard that would let you go, wow, this guy's amazing. Thank God we got him, Yep. It's like, oh, okay. Okay, let's see what happens. That's kind of, what else are you going to say? But he's brought in all his own people, all his own writers, and he seems to really understand Star Trek. And I say that from having seen episode 1. Now, I've watched it twice. I watched it once, just like, okay, here we go. And the reason why I went ahead, it's like I said, I saw these other YouTubers and people that have really shredded Star Trek. New Trek, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
And they are just gushing over season 6. And they've seen all the episodes. They got the early ones, so they've seen them all. And Dave Cullen is saying from beginning to end, it's good. And he's been as big a critic as anybody of New Trek. I'll give it a shot. And there were times in this episode that I was actually smiling. I was actually excited. I was enjoying myself. I was losing track of time. Mm-hmm. I'm just, I was joking in the stream. It's like, I'm feeling emotions. What is this?
Wow.
Positive emotions? What? So what'd you, I mean, just overall summary before we get into the details of the plot. What did you watched it now. What did you,
What
was your reaction?
I watched it twice though. I said to you, didn't I, at the last stream we did with, when we talked about season 2 of Picard, I wasn't going to watch anymore. I was adamant. I was like, this is just such a kick in the face that I'm just...
I was with you.
Yeah. And then he said, well, look, we're hearing it's good. We need to do a new update. Give it a chance, but, let's check it out. And
I just wanted the clicks
first. And then we... I think I'm a whore. It's Star Trek whore. When you gave it, I think you gave it 4 out of 5, I think.
Yeah, about 4 out of 5. There were some things I had a problem with, but I mean, the things I had a problem with were mostly things that are not. I was thinking a lot about this. It's like, what are the things? There are minor things and there are major things that could be right or wrong with a show, right? Mm-hmm. And I started thinking about this idea of minor versus major, because it's like, okay, if you screw up a minor thing, you can kind of get away with it if the major things are good. So what are the major things? Well, the major things have got to be characterization and plot. Now, you could have the greatest plot characterization in the world, and if you have cardboard sets and bad lighting and terrible sound and terrible technical direction, that's going to be a problem. I think we can all assume that for the most part, technical direction on a show like this with its budget is not going to be an issue. However, I will say they need to turn on the lights.
Yeah.
Not exterior shots though. Those I was so pleased with, because they weren't trying to show off what they could do with a computer. They were just trying to show the Titan or the space dock.
Yeah.
Or what was going on with the ships. They weren't trying to take a drone camera and spin it all the way around, and then into ductwork and down to the fucking engineering, and then out a food replicator, and then back out through the bridge. And you're like, oh God, stop! No,
Theme park.
just a nice, easy, lazy camera going around the Titan. Oh, it was beautiful. And then they put in music that was original, but it definitely cribbed from both James Horner and Jerry Goldsmith.
Yeah.
But there was some but the way they did it, I was like they did basically the Titan leaves space dock, nice and slow and majestic, and they're playing the music and swelling, and I'm like going, what? I'm feeling things. What the hell? I've got a smile on my face. This is beautiful. And I was really into it. And not just because I was seeing good shots of the Titan. The build-up from the plot got me there. Yeah. And we still had half the show to go. But it was really well done. So, you want to get into spoilers? We get into spoilers?
I think if you're a Star Trek fan and anyone who's going to watch this has probably seen it anyway, so yeah.
Spoil it.
Yeah. I'm saying spoilers now if you haven't seen it. And if you haven't by now, considering the length of time since episode 2 will probably be up before I get this up. So
yeah.
It starts out, it started out okay, but I was already starting to have some uh-ohs in the beginning. And this is when Beverly is on the ship and they're showing it's really dark inside the ship again. Like, did you see the Jack Crusher footlocker that she had? I was like, no, because I couldn't read it.
Oh no, I saw that. I wanted to do before because there were some flowers that I thought must have some significance.
And there's a
They were the.
oh,
Yeah, so I think the pearl necklace was. I'm going to show my geek cred here.
go on.
The pearl necklace is from when she played in the Last Goodbye. It was the first time they all went to the holodeck in a Dixon Hill thing, and she put on a whole outfit, like a 1930s outfit. It had pearls. That was when the big fat gangster guy walked out of the holodeck and then just faded away. Like, oh god damn it. And then the flowers, I think, are this. I don't think they're the exact same, but there's very similar style flowers to when she was clipping them in the episode. Oh god, I can't remember the title, but the Enterprise just keeps blowing up, and they're in a time loop.
Oh yes, I know the one you mean.
Yeah. One of the better episodes. And so they do all that, and they show all this stuff here, but it was so badly lit. Like they said, this is Jack Crusher's thing. I looked at it twice. I could not read it with my screen. I had to, I Googled it, and somebody put a picture, and then they must have cranked up the image, the gamma on the image or something, because then I could see it, but I couldn't see it in the moment. So I don't know. The photography, they need to work on that, at least on interior shots. There's no need for it to be that dark. I understand you don't want to go with fluorescent TV lighting, but you could do better than this.
Well, I mean, I don't mind the dark shots when there's moments on alien ships and it's not the Enterprise or Starfleet. That's fine. I think the dark shots on whenever they're showing new bridges, I don't know whether they're trying to go for a whole submarine feel, but it's so different from obviously the colour and the brightness of the 60s and Kirk. Then you had the blinding of the 90s next gen. Then you had JJ's, which was just like neon line. The iPod. Yeah. So they took it in complete opposite directions. So I don't understand the thinking. That would be my criticism about.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I wonder if they took all the lens flare criticisms to heart and now they've gone completely the other way, or if it's just something that's in. I mean, a lot of shows are pretty dark, but I mean this particular scene at the beginning was so dark. I had trouble making things out. I don't mind it being dark as long as I can see everything. If I can make out everything and I understand what's going on, I'm fine with it. If I'm having trouble seeing details because it's just so black, it's like, well, you're going too far. And then Beverly, now the jury's out on this. I just felt it was a bit out of character for her to be grabbing a pump action energy. Why is it pump action? That I didn't like. And then she's just murdering a guy right on the floor. Like, that was an execution.
Yeah.
And now at this point I'm going, oh boy.
Yeah, I thought the same. Here we go again.
This is not good. And then she sends a message out. There's a log file playing from Picard's log from The Best of Both Worlds.
Yep.
And she sends a message to Picard. So then we switch to Picard. And from here, everything got much better.
Yeah.
They did an interesting, like, they didn't do that stupid putting Picard together with things falling and that lousy music,
It felt like
They just,
even straight away, just the music.
yeah, Star Trek Picard, keep up.
Yeah. You was watching Star Trek. You knew you was going to be watching Star Trek.
You were watching Star Trek, and so they, what do? They took the. He's in his chateau and he's with Laris, and he's acting already more like himself. You know, he's not getting all weepy about anything. He's talking about his past, and the way he's talking about it felt very much like he would in the series. Like, these things are very important to me. They are my past, but I want to go on a new adventure. And he's not getting, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, he sounds more disciplined. He sounds more sure of himself. He's like, let's send the portrait to Geordi in the Fleet Museum. He'll love that, you know. He's not trashing his past, but he's saying, okay, you know, it's time to give these things to places that make more sense. I'll keep some of it. You know, it just felt very natural to me. Like, that's the way it should be.
That's the question. Why? I don't know. It comes up later in the show, but there seems to be this. I presume that was the Enterprise D in the picture. In the portrait. Why? What is this thing with fan base on Enterprise D? Because it never bothered me. I know later on, which we'll get to, that girl behind the bar says no one wants the fat. And then Lois says to him, you know, the first is always the best or something, or the favourite. You know, it wasn't the first.
Yeah.
She and Michael have already displayed their love and affection for that particular ship, and yet it seems to me there's a nod towards the fan base not like. I think
I kind of feel like this is a really good example of what the fans think versus what people in universe would think. And I think with the I think we love the Galaxy class starship because it's the one we're familiar with from the show.
Yeah.
But if you look at the Galaxy class's track record within the show, you got the Yamato, who got a computer virus and exploded. The Enterprise crashed on a planet from a lucky shot from a Klingon bird of fucking prey.
Yeah.
There was the Odyssey, I think it was called, in Deep Space Nine, which had a Dominion ship just ram it and the entire thing exploded.
Okay, right.
And there's probably other examples within Star Trek canon of Galaxy classes just dying horrible deaths. So I kind of wonder if that's like, yeah, we love it, but if you're really objective about it, was the Galaxy class that great? Maybe not. You know, I mean, I actually kind of appreciate that a little bit. Sure, Riker and Picard love the Galaxy class starships, where they spent a lot of time on it, and they have, you know, clearly a lot of memories for it. But the rest of the galaxy might be saying, oh, those fat things, they exploded every chance again. I mean, you know, they got. You know, you didn't keep your antivirus program going, and man, the thing would explode.
I just thought I was missing something. There was two references to the Enterprise.
That is purely my opinion. I have no idea why we're doing that. So, yeah, they're in guidance place. Fortunately, we don't have to see Whoopi Goldberg again. And so the reason why they're in guidance place, back out, is because Picard gets a call on his old communicator from the D. He saved it along with his uniform in a footlocker.
But you know what, Yoda? That was also a nice touch because he was obviously picking up on his hearing. He's obviously got abnormally good hearing, which has been mentioned throughout the show.
Yeah, maybe. I hadn't thought about that. I did like. I thought it was dumb that he's like, "Hey, computer, what is that?" She goes, and the computer correctly identifies what it is. It's like, where is it? She's like, I don't know. Like, my fucking Samsung watch can find my phone in my house. What are you talking about? You don't know where it is.
It was a nice nod to pick up on his hearing as well. Can I just say one thing as well? There was another thing just before that when he said to the guy who was helping clear the house, he turned around to him and said, "Can you back that up and get that shipped off to Geordie," or words to that effect.
Yeah.
And he just thanked him for doing it. And it's like he gave him an order rather than a request. And I like
Yeah.
they slipped back to the fact that he was a commander in charge of thousands of lives over his career.
Well, I think the difference is,
I've got this guy to do it.
I think the difference is that we are seeing Picard properly portrayed and not Patrick Stewart playing himself.
Yeah.
This started happening way back in, probably in the movies, but most especially in Nemesis, where Picard became a redneck off-roader because Patrick Stewart likes off-roading in those whatever. So that was a big deal for Stewart. But I'm like, that is not Picard. You know? Mr. Shakespeare, just leave me alone. I just want to read my fucking book. It's not out mudding. Okay? That's crazy. So I think there's a lot of that happened, and I think that's where season 1, season 2, where it was Patrick Stewart playing himself more than likely, or at least his way of thinking. And I think he had a lot of writing credits in that. And now he's playing Picard, and that I appreciate it.
Yep.
So he gets this communique, and he figures out it's from Beverly, and she gives him a code word, and they find out when he goes and tells Riker that she's in trouble and we need to find her. Riker says, "Oh, this code word. Well, that was when you were a Borg, when you were Locutus, and the Borg put some weird virus in our computer systems, and it added 3 digits to everything. So the message that she gave him, it had coordinates, but he couldn't figure out the coordinates. And Riker says, "Oh, well, let me add 3 digits to each of these coordinates. Oh, here it is. It's this system. Oh, okay. Now we're on to something. So now we got to figure out how to get there, but nobody's going to give him a ship. Why wouldn't anybody give him a ship? It's Picard and Riker. I mean, you would think somebody would say, hey, okay. But, all right. She said no Starfleet. That's why. She said no Starfleet.
Yes.
Say, this is it. Even when I have questions, I'm like, wait a minute, they did answer that. That's great.
Yeah. And I think with someone as well, I liked how sensitive Riker was regarding the subject of Picard not knowing the code, because obviously he would be turned into Locutus.
Right. Yeah. It's a nice callback. It's not a member berry.
No. But what I like is they clearly treated it as still a sensitive subject after all these years, Picard, and Riker approached it in a diplomatic way as he could with a threat. I think in season 1 or 2, they would have just hit him over the head of it. Well, you was a Borg at that time, and just mumbled their way.
And then Picard would have started crying. And then there would have been a therapy session. Didn't both of the... I know season 2 did. I'm not sure about season 1. But then they have therapy sessions in both of them. Because that's all these writers know. They sit there and they're therapists all the time. So therapy sessions in this one.
I can't... Yeah, because he had therapy sessions with Data.
Yeah. Something like that. And then he was in therapy... Like his daughter or his great-grandma, I guess, would be... Or... was it a therapy session, and then he had therapy sessions because his mom hung herself. It's like that's all these people live, is broken homes and therapists. That's all they know how to write about. So Riker and Picard, they say, okay, well, let's get a ship. We're going to go to my old ship, the Titan. Riker was given command of the Titan at the end of Nemesis. Now at this time, he's given it over to Captain Shaw, Captain Assface, and that's what I called him. We'll see about Captain Assface. I'm hearing positive things, but I don't know yet because I haven't seen the rest of it. But my first, it's like, oh, he's just being an asshole because he's, you gotta have an antagonist. But if he goes like full Captain Jellicoe, then I'll be much more happy with him.
I think they're laying the groundwork out because he clearly there's an element of distrust and contempt on his part with Riker and Picard's past, showboating and living dangerously, and he's obviously very much by the book because he's refusing to follow their requests. But I think
he's clearly got some animosity, and he makes a Borg reference. Picard and Riker come to have dinner with him, and he's already eating because he's just being so disrespectful to him.
Yeah,
and he's just grilling him every time. And then he makes a Borg reference, to which finally Riker says, "All right, that's enough," And that's I gotta wonder if he lost somebody at Wolf 359 or something like that. I think that's going to be the thing there, and that will make sense to me.
But then you see echoes of DS9. Go ahead, say again. Sorry, he's got real anger issues towards 7 of 9 as well, hasn't he? You can clearly see he's just... And only...
Yeah.
Is it Hansen?
So her name is Annika Hansen. And the way I thought this was... I think I'm the only one that's noticed this, and so maybe I'm just in a world of my own, and there's nothing really there. But he insists on calling her Annika Hansen or Commander Hansen, or just Hansen. And the way he says it, and I'll put it in here, but to me, the way he says it, it sounds like he's saying ensign, which would be a real disrespect to her rank. She's the first officer of a high profile ship, and he keeps calling her Hansen, and the way he slurs it a little bit together, it sounds like he's saying ensign. And if that's on purpose, that is a brilliantly subtle way of him showing disrespect to 7. I thought that was, I think I'm the only one that picked up on that, and maybe I'm just seeing something that isn't there, but it felt like it, the way that's what he was doing to me.
Hanson, you have the con.
Yeah, no, I think I had noticed it once. I think it was when after Riker said that's enough, and he said to 7 or Hansen, "You're lured with his ship." And when he said it, I was like, I had to rewind it because I actually didn't think he called her an ensign.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, she's not an ensign. So yeah, so I think it was purposely done. Very clever.
I think so too, and the reason why I think so is because there seems to be a lot of attention to detail so far that I've seen in this show, and so that, I mean, her name was already Hansen. That was already canon from way back in Voyager. We knew that, but to use that and for him to say it that way,
clever.
Yeah, because he doesn't say Commander Hansen. He says Hansen.
Hanson, you have the con.
Hansen, go do this. Hansen, and it sounds like he's saying Ensign, do this. Ensign, do that. And I thought, oh, clever girl.
Clever girl.
So I thought that was cool. And then so then I guess Riker and Picard are trying to snow him to go to the Ryzen system, whatever it's called, Rickton, and he says no, because I think Picard screws up, doesn't realize that Deep Space 4 has been decommissioned, and so he fucks it all up, and they blow their cover. And so Shaw says, look, I'm going to do what I'm ordered to do. You guys don't have any rank over me. You're retired. You don't have a chair. Go fuck yourselves. And so he says, we're a little short on quarters because you came in here kind of late. And he puts them into a crewman's bunk, bunk fence, which is pretty funny. And so then they 7 calls them to the briefing room and basically lays out Picard, which, Riker says, hey, is that how you talk to an admiral? And she goes, that's how I talk to a friend. which I thought was, yeah, that's kind of the thing I would see in the older series, the way they would talk to each other. And he says, look, I didn't want to get you involved. I didn't want to hurt your career. And she says, well, look, if there's something going on here, I need to know about it. And, you should have trusted my loyalty or whatever. And then she says, we're here. And she has disobeyed orders and taken them to the system. And she says, you got 4 minutes, go get a shuttle, get out of here. I'll deal with the bullshit here. And so they get into a shuttle, and then you got Riker and Picard having some more banter. And I kind of like how they're leaning a little bit into their age, I think at one point Riker says, yeah, you got arthritis. You can't move your fingers. My knees are shot. If we don't have to shoot or move, we're going to do just fine.
Your hands are stiff. My knees are killing me. So long as we don't have to move or shoot, we should be fine.
Like, yeah, good. Okay. Makes sense. So, because I think these guys are at least as old or older than the original crew was in Undiscovered Country. And that's saying something. So,
I mean, Patrick Stewart's probably about 7.
I think he's 80, 81, something like that. And Riker, I want to say he's in his late 60s at best.
You could go or yourself.
Yeah. So anyway, they take the shuttle in and they find Beverly's son with a British accent. Dun dun dun.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you think he might be Picard's?
Interesting.
Even if he is, it's like you don't get bored with a British accent. It's not how that works.
Well, this is like mine.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that. Well, he got his father's accent. How? But so I don't know. Maybe he won't be Picard's son. Maybe it'll be something else. That we don't know about.
I mean, I think that's to me that's too obvious. But then because they made quite a thing about Beverly cutting contact with everyone for 20 years.
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
To think that Picard knocked her up and that she went AWOL to raise his kid.
Let's hope it's Riker, so that when Deanna comes on, it could be really interesting after that. So, yeah, they find his son, and Beverly's in a stasis tube because she was injured at the very beginning, and I guess they put her in there. And then big ship comes in, and then end credits. And the big ship looks evil. I mean, I that's another thing I don't like. The ship designs, they're like the Romulan bird of prey or the Romulan warbird and the Klingon ships, they looked different. They even looked a little imposing, but mostly they just look like, oh, this is a different, they have a different aesthetic. But now they make the ships and they just look evil. Yeah. It's like 4 pointy talons coming in, like a demon claw coming out of hell. It's like, why do you gotta make them? You don't have to make the ships look like that.
Ship, wasn't it, from Nemesis? That way.
Yeah.
And then,
well, like
a JJ Star Trek.
Yeah, Nero's ship comes out looking like it's like, what? Why does it look like that? It doesn't need to look like that.
Considering the Borgs is just the cube, and it's probably one of the most intimidating things you've ever seen.
Yeah. I mean, the Borg cube was, but there was a reason for it being a cube. I mean, a simple geometric shape for a hive mind, and all their ships are geometric shapes, spheres, cubes, things like that. And I like that about that with the Borg. It was intimidating, but it was perfectly in line with their civilization. The Romulan warbird was in line with their civilization. They didn't portray these enemy ships as evil. They, maybe different because they're a different civilization. They have their own, but they're not evil. They're just were at odds. At some point, the Romulans and the Klingons all came together to fight the Dominion and became more allies and hopefully work towards something in the future. I don't know. But the point is that, you know, making a ship look like that, that's just silly to me. But that gets me to the major and minor things. It's like, that's a minor thing. Yeah. The photography being a little too dark is a minor thing. These did not detract from my enjoyment of the film, of the show. The major things, the way Picard acted, I loved when he came onto the ship. Him and Riker came onto the ship at the very beginning, and Seven greets them, and they're on the bridge, and they meet Geordi's daughter. Yeah. And everybody on the ship is just acting like they would. Like, you know, they're just placid faces, doing their jobs. Nobody's making little snide remarks under their breath. Nobody's like Uhura and Strange New Worlds going, cool. You know. Her being a little bit, she's a friend of the family, you know, and she hasn't seen Riker and Picard in a while, and she was probably a lot younger, and they didn't recognize her all grown up. And there was a little bit of a, you know, it was kind of like Demora Sulu on Generations, right?
Yes.
It was like that. And you didn't feel like it was out of place. And they're ribbing her a little bit, like an elder statesman and an elder rank would to somebody like that. And she's like, oh, I was hoping nobody would know about me crashing the ships, but
it was that Riker was called it a Crash LaForge, yeah. But it wasn't real.
It didn't feel out of place. It didn't feel like it was something you wouldn't see in a Star Trek movie. You know, there were times of levity and moments of informality, and that seemed perfectly appropriate. And I also liked, I never heard, I don't think once in the entire episode, some sort of contemporary colloquialism. You know, like, I think some guy mentioned in one other, something I was listening to, where in the very first season, the Soji or with the girl at the very beginning, and she was with her boyfriend. The boyfriend saying, "Oh, your food replicator menu is tragic," or something like that. And it was like, it's just not the way people spoke. They spoke more formally in Star Trek most of the time, because these were people that were exemplary. They were, you know, well above average. You know, these were superlative people, and they spoke well, higher educated. They knew what they were doing, and they didn't need to use stupid slurs and stuff like that.
I didn't hear any F-bombs. That was nice. I don't like hearing F-bombs in Star Trek.
There's a few swears.
I heard maybe a hell. There was nothing that stood out at me. Like I heard, like Star Trek all the time was like, "What the hell is going on here, Captain?" You know, things like that. But I didn't hear like "fuck" or "shit." You know, those are next level swears, baby.
Oh, there was a shit in there, and I think there was something about someone being pissed off as well.
There was a shit? I don't remember shit.
Yeah, there was. I'm sure there was a shit in there, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, it just coarsens it. Look, I don't have it. Anybody's listened to any of these streams know I don't care about swearing. I
swear like a sailor half the time.
It's appalling.
Yeah.
I'm not living in Star Trek.
Right. But I mean, and I don't have a problem watching a lot of different movies that have swears in them. Because it's usually appropriate or for the material, or it just doesn't bother me. But in Star Trek, it does. It would bother me like in a... It feels like Star Trek should be better than that. It shouldn't be coarse.
Sheer fucking hubris.
You know,
they're military as well, and they're advanced military or navy. I mean, I'm not saying it was swearing like a sailor, but I think in the next 300 years, it's probably eradicated from our vocabulary.
Well, I don't know. I think our vocabulary is going to be nothing but emojis.
Fetch it.
Eggplant, shovel, smile.
Darmok and Gillard. Tanagra.
You saw that? Is it the ball one? Was he
the episode next
Darmok. Yeah, we're all going to be
It'll
Darmok.
that.
But it'll be all emojis instead of, you know. Advanced civilization, we do first contact. Do you have any idea what they're saying? It's like, fuck, it's just pictures.
Yeah, that's where we're going. We're heading for Darmok.
Sad. So anyway, that was the episode. Again, I nitpicks. I think I've illustrated them all. What do you got?
Well, it's interesting that you never mentioned Raffi,
I did not mention Raffi.
who I find to be the most abhorrent, horrible character. I've likened her to, she's Star Trek's Jar Jar Binks. That's how much I despise her. Awful character. Absolutely awful.
So, I've seen Michelle Hurd in other things. She's a fine actress.
Okay, I'll take your word for that.
She's not the best, but I mean she's good enough. She's saddled with a lot of Rafi cry face. You know what I mean? Like she's always just on the edge, just, you know. And I feel like the writers saddled her with that, and so she had that face in this episode, that wrinkled cry face. But in this episode, she was doing that because she just witnessed somebody open up a Doctor Strange portal for the building, and the building falls through the Strange portal. Then the other part of it opens up and dumps the building on some other place where everybody dies. You can hear people screaming and carrying on, and thousands of people are dying. It's like, okay, yeah, that's appropriate. That's a face that's appropriate for this situation, you know? The problem is I've seen this face for stuff that is so fucking petty and wrong in the previous two. It's kind of hard to divorce yourself from that.
It's just, she was getting angry with the person that she was undercover for, because he wasn't giving up much information. She got angry with the computer because he wasn't helping her find who the Red Lady was. Then she's sitting there watching some young girl on a screen, and she's like, "Oh, hello, little one." And you're like, "Oh my God, this woman is just so unstable. Just get rid of her. Just kill her off.
Don't want to watch her.
Yeah, I mean, she probably had a contract or something. And here it's part of the reason, most of the reason I dislike Rafi so much is because of what she was in the first two seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And she did not act inappropriate here in most of the situations. Maybe a little much, but it's like, okay, you're undercover and you're doing all this seedy stuff and you end up back on drugs, you know, like Serpico or something. I don't know. If you think of where, you know, cop goes undercover in drug links, and he ends up on drugs himself, you know, I kind of looked at it like that. And she did throw away the drug when she got the information. You saw her put it down. Like, that was good. I didn't like to see her back on drugs, but I thought that was good. And she's talking, she's whining to the Orion about her stuff and everything, but I felt like that was all about getting the information. And once she got the information, she went over and flipped an old style communicator and then very loudly told everybody, "Hey, I'm Starfleet."
And then went back
I'm Starfleet spy.
And then went back to her ship to talk about it. He's like, "Oh my God."
Yeah. It's like, why didn't you go to the ship first? But okay. Again, that's a nitpick, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, I felt like that was a front she was putting on. She doesn't really want to do the drugs again, and she threw them away because she had the information. She knew that she had to get her mind right, and she's still whatever. And I'm like, okay, like if I had never met this character before and I saw this, I probably wouldn't be so upset. If they'd gotten somebody else, like just somebody new instead of Raffi, that I feel bad for the actress because she's saddled with the crap writing of the two seasons, and now she's doing and acting and being the way I would expect in this situation that they've thrown her into, but we're crapping on her because of the first two. So it's like, okay, well, what do you do? I mean, this is one of those situations where it's like Metallis is hampered by what came before.
Okay.
That's how I see it. I mean, I guess I'm being overly nice because I'm just happy to see something that made me not angry.
Yeah. I think it was more than not being. I mean, I've heard a few people say, you know, well, I think Doomcock he's probably the most vocal about it. He's talking about, yeah, you shouldn't watch it, blah, 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 and you're only enjoying it because the other 2 seasons have been so bad. But I think he said right at the beginning, it felt like a Star Trek. Within the first 5 minutes, you felt like you was watching a Star Trek, as opposed to the crap we've had before.
Yeah, I mean, there's something telling when I watch it the second time, and I'm kind of enjoying it even more the second time. Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel like a chore. And then when you hear the music and you watch this new Titan, the Neo Constitution class,
yep,
which I thought that's the best designed ship I've seen in the Federation since, because I never liked the Enterprise E. The Enterprise D was, I grew to like it, but mostly because of familiarity and because of what it meant. But when I first saw the Enterprise D, I was like, oh, it's all squishy.
Yeah, top heavy.
Yeah,
always looked like he was going to tilt.
Yeah, I wasn't as big a deal. My favorite has always been the Enterprise refit, or the Enterprise A, which is the exact same ship. But you know, as far as the look, it took the original design from the show and just perfected it. It didn't change anything. You know, like proportionally, it's exactly the same. They swept back the pylons, and then they did the rectangular nacelles instead of the circular ones, and a much nicer, perfect looking saucer section. And then they put the blue glow on the dish on the secondary hull, and all of it just looks perfect to me. And this one came the closest to having an iconic design, in my opinion, that they haven't really been able to do.
Do you like JJ's Enterprise? I like it. I've got a bit on the. I know it's heresy, but I do.
Well,
like
it basically looks like the original one, but like I think the cells are a little too fat and have a weird look to them, and it's okay. But I mean, it's just a warmed over version of what already was. This one is different enough. The Titan is different enough from the original Enterprise, but it feels like it has some of the best parts of different designs. Like it has a little bit of Excelsior, it feels like, in there.
Okay.
It has a little bit of Voyager, and has the great saucer that looks like from the original. And I don't know, it's colored nice, and the impulse engines and everything are nice places. It just aesthetically, I think it's one of the better ones I've seen since the first movie version. The first movie version will always be my favorite. I've never been able to.
The gold standard.
It is to me. It always has been.
I like that. I like the Enterprise C better than the D.
Which one's the C? I'm going to look.
That's the one that Rachel Garrett came through and it changed time. And then they had to send her back with Tasha Yar.
Yes. Yeah, that was nice. Yeah. Yeah, because it kind of come out of the side more as opposed to up.
Yeah. It was kind of a mix of the A and the D, and it was nicely put together. I always liked it.
You know the one I always hated, and I mean really hated, was the Enterprise B. I'm just looking up on the screen now. The Enterprise B.
It was an Excelsior classic. Yeah.
I like that one.
I always liked the Excelsior okay for what it was, but let me put it this way. I'd rather it wasn't an Enterprise. I like an Excelsior for being a different style of ship, but it's been pretty good for, they've used it in a lot of stuff for years.
Did you catch the Easter egg? I think there was I'm just looking up as well, as that they had a Voyager, might have been the Voyager B on one of the screens.
I didn't, but I'm sure there was something there.
Oh, where was it? Voyager B revealed. I have to. Yeah, it was actually. I think it was. It was when Raffi was looking for the red lady. If you watch it later, top left, you see his Voyager B little snippet.
I went through one of those videos that said, here's a bunch of Easter eggs you found. And I remember one of them was she found the 3 upcoming events. Frontier Day is the one there. That's the big deal that she figured out. But one of them I know is on Deep Space Nine. It was like an whole episode about Gratitude Day or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Like the Bajoran Thanksgiving. And it's like, oh, it's a nice callback. Okay. I like that.
Yeah, see, so I really, we're in control. Well, people in control of this seem to know their onions, not like the last 2 seasons. We've got people who seem to understand Star Trek again.
Yeah, and people might say, well, those are member berries. I'm like, okay.
They're not.
What is a member berry? What is a member berry versus something that would acknowledge what has been? I mean, how do you differentiate between the two?
Well, I think what we're talking about is these are nods to the past or respecting the law without throwing it in your face. I think a member berry is where blatantly go, hey, do you remember Voyager? And here's their new ship. But with this, it's just snippets in the background.
So member berries are more about pandering and trying to keep you interested because you see things you recognize, but they're not germane to the story or anything. But I mean, I would say some of these other things aren't really that germane to the story either. Like the Voyager B or something. So I mean, why are those not member berries and these are? Or is it because they pretend they're germane to the story when they really aren't?
I think for me, I think it's because they're just subtle nods without them being too much in your face. Like Beverly's flowers and the pearl necklace. They're things for super fans to remember without having to. I suppose a member berry is probably like explaining the punchline of your joke.
That's an interesting way to put it. Yeah, a little bit like that. It feels cheap and I feel like it's the Supreme Court when they're defining porn. It's like I can't define it, but I know it when I see it. I know a member berry when I see it. But when you define it, because I mean, people might say, well, why isn't this a member berry? It's like, okay, well, because it's not. Wow. You're really backhanded me with that argument,
Exactly.
But yeah, I didn't feel like things were. I mean, the music was just perfect, and while it did call back so many themes and things that we have heard before between Goldsmith and Horner, I think there might have even been a tiny little bit from Star Trek 6 in there. But it's still there was some real original theme in there when they were leaving that had just little snippets from that echoed Horner. And I was like, oh, this, because music in shows lately, it's just terrible. It hasn't been good for so long. They don't do themes anymore. Look, the only thing I like about the prequels is Williams' score. His score is still very, very good.
Yeah.
And he has some excellent moments in it that I just... Ray's theme is great. So, I mean, and I wish we did more of that, and we don't for some reason. We want to do... I think it's kind of like the postmodernist stuff, It's like architecture is all bland and minimalist. Music is all minimalist now for movie scores. It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
So, this was a throwback, and it evoked emotion. It evoked epicness. It evoked grandeur, and that was great. I loved it.
Yeah.
I'm not getting to. I know you've said that other people have watched the whole season, and they're saying it's excellent. I'm still apprehensive, so I'm not going to be licking my balls just yet. But it's just color. So far, so good.
That line is in episode 7 where Picard says, "I'm going to lick my balls."
Do you know what? They probably would say that as well.
They would if it was the old showrunners. You know that.
Yeah, Kurtzman in now. So I'm apprehensive, but I'm also slightly optimistic as well. If people that have hated seasons 1 and 2 are saying that this is actually good and feels like Star Trek, then there's no reason not to be optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, and part of the reason, and I want to discuss this, and I think we could wrap it up because I think we've talked about the first episode as much as possible, but I did want to, you mentioned Doomcock, and I did want to mention that, you and I had a couple of different videos on this where we discussed New Trek in general. Mm-hmm. Picard probably more in particular, but we discussed Strange New Worlds a bit and Discovery, and we had very little good to say about any of it, and we tried to illustrate our points and everything. But I really do fear, to a certain extent, of becoming just, curmudgeon. Everything sucks.
Yeah.
I've been hurt in the past, so I'm not going to let them hurt me again. And so even if it's good, I'm just going to stick my fingers in my ears and stamp my foot and say, no, not. And I just don't want to be that way. I really don't. No. But also, I don't want to... The question I had during the stream, and I'll try to expand on this because I don't think we really answered it very well, was, okay, let's assume this is good, that everybody says. Does this, if we don't watch it because you've been so upset by what's happened before. So Picard comes out on season 1. Everybody goes, oh boy, Picard's coming back. I got to give it a try. Of course, everybody watches it, right? Then you get through it, and then you get through the second season. The ratings are dropping off. But it started, really high at the beginning and probably through a lot of it and got great ratings and all that kind of stuff. And so now you get to season 3 and everybody's like, F this. I'm not doing it. And it turns out season 3 is good. Mm-hmm. So what's the message we're sending to Paramount? No. Your good ratings were when you went completely woke and did all that nonsense. But when you course corrected and did this, that's actually really good for people like us saying it. People are so burned from the first 2 seasons, they don't watch it. And so Paramount thinks, well, I guess they don't want us to course correct. I guess they want all the woke stuff because that's where we got the ratings.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my
fear. So I would say to people like Doomcock and the people that are refusing to watch it just because they've been burnt in the past is wait until 3 episodes, at least 3 episodes have aired, and then watch all 3 and see, go from there. If you don't like it, don't watch it, and that will give them the message that they're still not hitting the target. If you do like it, there's nothing wrong with liking it. It means that they've listened to you, corrected everything they've done wrong, and they've put it back on the right course. Listen, none of our generation want any of this to fail. We don't like sitting here slagging off Star Trek and Indiana Jones and Star Wars. We want the good stuff. And the only time we're going to get the good stuff is if we start watching and appreciating it when they do get things right again. Like Mandalorian. Mandalorian's hitting all the right notes. Everyone's lapping it up. Star Trek Picard so far, season 3, seems to be hitting all the right notes. So we've made our points clear with season 1 and 2, with Discovery. Jury's still out on Strange New Worlds. We've made our points clear with Book of Boba Fett and the sequels. So let them course correct, and if we can get them on the right path and everyone starts watching it again, then they'll go, actually, yeah, we've mucked up. This is what the fans want again. And then we can we can sit here for another 10 years waxing lyrical about how good these shows are again. We don't want shows to be shit. We want good shows again.
I agree. I look at it like, when I hear people say, I'm not going to watch it because I'm mad at the corporation or I'm mad. It's not the worst reason to not want to watch something. And I understand it. Mm-hmm. But if you don't like the show, fine. Don't watch the show. If you think it's a bad show on its own merits, that's fine. If you're doing it for some other reason that has nothing to do with the people and the showrunners and everybody that's worked on this, I'm not sure you're making the problem. You're not adding anything to make the problem better, to fix the problem. You may be actually counterproductive in making it worse. Now, I think there is an argument to say, okay, let's say everybody watches this. He does good. If they're smart, they'll keep this Metallis to keep doing other stuff. Maybe make him the showrunner of Strange New Worlds or some of this other stuff. Or they'll say, I guess everybody likes Star Trek again, and then they'll just do more woke stuff. When you look at, I look at Star Wars as a template, right? You've got bad Star Wars, bad Star Wars, bad Star Wars. Mandalorian comes out. Oh, that's good. Great. Maybe they've course corrected. Boba Fett comes out. Crap. Right? So you go, okay, is this just a one and done thing? MCU, the same way, right? WandaVision, Falcon Winter Soldier, bad MCU after bad MCU, bad MCU. Spider-Man No Way Home. Fantastic. And then we're back to bad, Multiverse of Madness, Love and Thunder, back to crap again. So, I mean, are we just saying, okay, well, we give them the one, and then they do good, and it gives them just enough money to keep doing the nonsense that they've been doing? I think that's a legitimate fear, because we've seen that happen. But I also look at the other side of it, like the Harry Potter game. Is the Harry Potter game good or bad? My daughter likes it.
My son likes it.
Yeah. Why do you hate the Harry Potter game? Because you don't like J.K. Rowling, who has very little to do with the game other than she created the world and signed off on, so she could get the checks from it. And there's a whole bunch of people that worked on this that love the Harry Potter world, which has, the world itself and the product has really nothing to do with J.K. Rowling tweeting something you don't like. And so when you boycott it and everything, I just feel like it's an authentic reason to do it. And that's the way I kind of look at Doomcock. It's like, if you really think it's bad, fine. If you think you just don't want to like it because the other stuff was bad, I'm not sure that's a very positive way to move forward on any of this. I'm not sure that's going to help us get anywhere and reclaim our properties.
No, I think they need these people that are currently in control of everything. They kind of need encouragement. They're like children. You kind of need to say to them, well done. You've done it. Let's have some more of the same, please. You can't keep cutting your nose off to spite your face. And listen, we could be sitting here in a year's time with Picard season 4, and they could have gone straight back again and just completely thrown it in our faces. But then all you do is you switch off and you just go, well, fine, you've had, you were bad. You course corrected and gave us something so far that is good. Then you basically kicked sand in our face and told us to go do one, and you've gone a bad way again. How many more times are these people going to keep pumping money into these franchises, getting it wrong, before it comes what that becomes they're not making any money. So I just don't understand why they do this. But hopefully they're now finally starting to realise that the fact.
Well, and it's you work for big companies.
Or big company. I mean, probably big enough. I work for a large company. I've worked for large companies. It's not as cut and dry as we say, well, they need to make the decision like they're just a monolith. It doesn't work that way. There's all kinds of people in all kinds of meetings going back and forth, doing all kinds of stuff. Trying to get everybody on the same page is like trying to turn the Titanic, sometimes. And you do need somebody at the head that can say, this is the direction we want to go, and put out that direction. But a CEO can't go in there. I mean, as much as we pissed off at Bob Iger, a CEO can't go in there and look at every single script and every single line and say, not this. It's not possible. You hire people that have that same mindset. Bob Iger has a woke mindset. He hires people with a woke mindset. David Zaslav, I don't know. But they're, just one production. If you've ever watched the credits on the end of one of these productions, they go on for miles. You're talking, hundreds of thousands of people that work on this. You're not going to, how do you clean out the woke people? And quite frankly, the people that are getting into the business because of the whole woke mentality and the whole cult thing, people like you and me are either shut out of the business or don't even want to associate with these people because they're all lunatics. So while you may get one guy who has grandfathered in like Metallis and can do this kind of thing right now, the question is like, are there people at the top, the powers that be, are going to course correct, cut out this cancer of activist lunatics from their HR departments all the way down to their writers, and realize that this is not healthy for the country, it's not healthy for the entertainment industry, it's certainly not healthy for the brands. And, that's the kind of things you got to talk about. And it isn't just one guy making one decision. I mean, you're talking hundreds of people that you got to knock in and out of all kinds of different places to make this work. And it's...
Tea time.
It must be nice. You get an American wife. They don't do that shit, man. But I'm just saying, it's like it's like a fifth column in all these different organizations. Some of them run the organization, these lunatics, and the normal, I think there was a letter from the New York Times. Like, there are some good reporters at the New York Times, but they are just drowned out by all this stuff. And there was an open letter that got leaked saying, you gotta get rid of these people, they're nuts. And if they have the power in these institutions, these organizations and everything, there is an argument to be said that even supporting the good stuff is not a good idea, because it's just gonna keep this going.
Yeah, because they're not going to get rid of the real people. Say again?
Well, I'll say it's a catch-22. You want it to succeed because you want them to realise what's working and what's not working. At the same time, you don't want to encourage them to feed their ego enough where they feel that they can actually go back. But I think the fact that Kurtzman has been pushed to the side, whether for whatever reasons, that's good. The fact that they've got someone in there who seems to understand Star Trek and respects the characters so far is a good thing. And to use Star Trek, we've got Favreau and is it Filoni? They understand the property very well, and look what they're delivering with Mando. But then you get a massive hack in there like Kennedy, who can't seem to keep her grubby little fingers out of movie, and everything she's touched turns to shit. So I think the problems with Star Wars could quite easily be fixed if they just get rid of Kennedy. Whether they will or not, I don't know. But I'm hoping...
Iger won't.
Do you not think?
He signed off on everything personally, as I understand it. And Kennedy... If he fires Kennedy, he's basically saying, I made mistakes in the past, and a guy with that kind of ego, he couldn't do that. So,
but how long's her contract got left? Can't have much longer.
If she goes away quietly, then maybe, but I don't think he's going to push her out, because Iger's I think Iger's all about his ego and all the. He's wrote it in his book and everything. So I guess I don't know. I mean, this is some of the stuff I heard from Midnight's Edge. So take it all with a grain of salt. But it appears that what he did with Star Wars and all the things he signed off on, including Kennedy. The choices Kennedy made, like he was very involved with that, and he wrote it all in his book. So if he fires Kennedy and does a big course correction on Star Wars, he's basically saying, yeah, I fucked up. And it seems the general consensus is that a guy like Iger ain't ever going to do that.
Well, in that case then, let's really hope that Mando 3 is awesome, because I think Indiana Jones is going to be Kennedy's final nail in the coffin. But going back to Star Trek, I think Star Trek's problem is obviously with Kurtzman, because everything Kurtzman has been involved in has been absolutely terrible. Now, if they'd recognised this already and pushed him to the side, perhaps they're course correcting already, perhaps they're learning from the Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, his stuff was dog shit from the very beginning. You know, he did the Amazing Spider-Man 2, I think. He might have been involved with 1 as well. And that was the Andrew Garfield. You saw those things are dog shit too. I mean, the guy, he writes full-length trailers. That's all he does.
Yeah.
They're not movies.
No.
And it's the only reason that everybody thinks he's so, it's like you managed to get your grubby little hands into known IPs and properties that people really love. And you have no talent to deal with any of them, but they make money because they are those IPs. So everybody thinks that you're the talent behind him, and he keeps getting fucking work. And he's an absolute hack.
Yeah, well, hopefully this will be the start of him to being removed forever, because everything he's done has been terrible. Absolutely everything.
I agree. So I guess the message is to Paramount, guys, we're so far, we like what you're doing with season 3. You've put the right people in. Do not take this as everybody loves the old stuff, or that these people that you had in there can do it. They can't. They're bad at it. Make sure you get more people like Terry Metallis and his writers to go in there and handle a lot of these properties, because you failed miserably so far.
Perfect.
That's all I got.
Yep, perfect. Put some lights on them damn ships inside.
Yes, turn on the lights. I'm still blaming you for that. I want to be able to see what I'm looking at.
Yeah, exactly. Put some lights on them and let's keep going. Give us hope. Give us hope back.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think this about wraps it up. Thank you very much for joining me here, Matt. I know we swore we wouldn't do it, but it's kind of nice to talk about something in a positive way.
I know. Are we going to do one for next week, season 2, episode 2?
Well, let's see how. I'll tell you what, you guys, do you want us to do each episode, or do you want us to just kind of do maybe halfway through the season and then finish it up at the end? Put your comments down below. Like, share, subscribe, all that I'm a whore stuff that I have to say. So, and visit us at Last Movie Outpost. I will be reviewing each episode on the website. And I'm also going to be doing a new series I call Star Trek Spotlight, where I'm taking individual episodes from various series that I really, really like and I think are important today, and kind of illustrate why I love Star Trek so much.
Actually, the one you just did. Sorry.
The Drum Men.
I watched that after reading your article. I was like, yes.
What'd you think?
I think this was. Yeah, I forgot how good it was.
It is good. And it's one of those slightly overlooked ones, although I think it's kind of coming more to the forefront now because you feel like there's a lot of this going on now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we'll see.
I mean, it's one of those episodes. Obviously, I'm a big Kirk fan. I think most of our generation are big Kirk fans. But it was one of those episodes where Patrick Stewart was so good in it. And Picard as a character was so awesome. You'd sit there and you think, is he a better captain than Kirk? You do have that. It was such a good episode. You do sit there and think, oh, I don't know. It's a tight call. Because I thought Patrick Stewart was sublime. Absolutely sublime in that.
Kirk was better for his era. Kirk would not have done as well.
Fan.
Yeah, I think Next Gen is probably a better series than originals than TOS in a lot of ways. But I also kind of look at it like they're products of their time, period. So Kirk is in a much more Wild West frontier time of the Federation. And, you know, because he would wipe his ass with the Prime Directive, and, you know, if he has to take over a gangster planet, and he'll do it. You know?
Yeah.
And if that means firing ship's phasers on people in the streets, he's going to do it. You know, Picard would never do that.
No.
But Picard, he had his own challenges, his own struggles, and he had a much more thoughtful approach to everything. And I think both of those series had, at the core, that was what was so great about Star Trek. It's why it's so important to me, is because it taught me so much about just being alive, you know, like making good choices and all these things, being a humanist, I guess. And it's like you had such great writers at those times doing these things, and now you got, you know, they it's like when you go to the Home Depot with your truck and you want to get some drywallers and you throw the illegal immigrants in the truck. I think these people go to like therapy sessions and they say, okay, I need two women with daddy issues and one drug addict, please. Get in the car. We're going to write some Star Trek episodes.
And an angry lesbian.
Yeah,
that's where we are. Well, just before we wrap up, I will say that Star Trek is meant to be all about human potential and optimism and hope for the future. And we haven't had that for 10 odd years.
No, we haven't. And it's been 14 years, really. Because I kind of like Star Trek 2009 when it first came out, mostly because I was a little starved for Star Trek. And it was... It was an enjoyable romp, but it was a Star Wars adventure movie. It was not a Star Trek movie. And time has not been kind to those three movies, I don't think, at all.
No, I've heard the first. You're talking about JJ's ones, aren't you? I liked the first one. I couldn't give 2 months for the second.
Second one was really bad, but even the first one doesn't really work for me anymore. I'm not a big fan of where it went, and it really is the thing that started this whole downhill slide. I on the flip side, I would still happily put in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, which everybody calls the boring one, and I love that movie. I think it's, especially the director's cut, I think it's a solid Star Trek movie that I think needs more love than it gets.
True. Fair enough,
all right, then.
Yeah,
I think so. So thank you very much for watching. And like I said, let us know in the comments down below if you want us to do every episode. We'll give it a try. But we'll definitely do midway and probably wrap up the entire series and give us our thoughts. So let's just do that. Let's just do midway, halfway through the season. How many episodes are there going to be? 10?
No, it's normally 10, isn't it? Hold season 3.
Yeah, it's going to be 10. So after episode 5, we'll do a thing, and then we'll do it after the whole thing's wrapped up, and we'll give our thoughts. But fingers crossed. So far, so good. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next stream.